All right, welcome to Destination the Show, episode 22. Really excited about this one and don't want to delay much. Want to get right into it because we are excited to welcome our first ever player guest onto the show, and that is Minnesota Twins pitching prospect Pierson Ohl. Pierson, welcome, man. How are you? And thanks for being here.
JD, I'm great. Thank you for letting me be here. This is awesome. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. Um, so I believe you're already in Fort Myers, gearing up for the 2024 season. How's prep going for you, and what do your days look like at the moment, man?
So I'm down here in Fort Myers already, as you can see, as the background. I don't have
That's
any decorations in my own house,
that's
um,
nice, man.
but no, it's great to be back with the guys. Everyone's slowly trickling in early to camp, excited for this year, excited to hit the ground running, and it's just a lot of day to day stuff, getting ready for camp.
Love it. So I've been really excited to talk to you, man, because um I think it's fair to say that you are still flying a little bit too much under the radar, right? For Twins fans, and I want to work to change that. So, but before we dig into your 2023 season, I want to go kind of all the way back. So for fans who aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about the kind of beginning of your baseball journey. How did you get hooked on the sport? And when did you realize that playing baseball at the collegiate level might be kind of an option for you?
I think it all starts from our parents, whether we like it or not. I want to say that your parents influence you the most because that's who you look up to as a young child. And I had a brother who was 2 years younger than me, and I had a dad who loved the game of baseball, and he poured into us so much knowledge, but he never pressured us or made us
Mm,
feel like we had to do anything. So it was kind of just like him planting a seed and seeing where it went. And having a brother that's very similar in age, you kind of just grow to be competitive and you want to win, you want to be the best, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I love what I'm doing. Let's continue to do this. Let's take it seriously. So all throughout youth baseball, I took it very seriously. Got to high school, took it even more seriously. Started to invest in myself and working out and whatnot. And then I had a couple high school teammates go to a Division I school, and I was like, you know what, that's something I really want to do. I want to go
mm,
play baseball at a super cool school or at the next level, get college paid for because I wasn't looking forward to paying for that. Um, and I started just making decisions based off how can I put myself in the best spot to go do that.
mm.
And the chips fell where they may, and the stars aligned, and I ended up getting a scholarship to go play baseball at Grand Canyon. Um, and and once that happens, it's kind of like a pat on the back for, hey, you've done the hard work, you've put yourself in a good spot. Now it's like now you're around the best of the best from all different areas of the country. Now what kind of decisions are you going to make at this level? So I'm blessed to be here where I'm at, and I'm just super excited to see where the game of baseball can take me.
That's awesome, man. So I do want to ask you about Grand Canyon because our show focuses a lot, like we talk about the draft a lot, and I think it's fair to say that like Grand Canyon is increasingly becoming a really, really interesting school to track with a number of really interesting players coming out of there with the likes of Jacob Wilson, Homer Bush Jr. In recent seasons. What was that experience like for you as a player, and what did you feel that you got the most kind of value out of there as both a player and a person?
For one, the school is phenomenal. I enjoyed it. I always tell people, even if I wasn't an athlete there, I would have enjoyed every day of it.
Mm,
But it was the leadership of that program. The head coach for me was Andy Stankiewicz, who was a longtime big leaguer. He understood what hard work meant, and he preached that to his guys. And he was just a phenomenal skipper. And so I learned countless things playing under him for all 3 years. And then, when you have a good skipper, people want to be around that. So you usually get good assistants, good pitching coaches,
mhm,
and that was the culture it was a part of. And the university does a great job with allowing Stankiewicz to go out and get the best in the. And Rich Dorman, my freshman year, who's the pitching coach at Oregon State, and that's a prestigious baseball school. So
mhm.
it's not like we're just getting guys just to do the job. But we're getting some of the guys that are the best in the country and the best in the world at what they do at the college level. And being around those guys, it kind of just it makes you feel like, hey, you know what? I'm one of those guys. Like we can be one of those guys. And then I mean, as the program progresses and guys start to invest and buy into that thought process, I mean, you get guys like Jacob Wilson to come to campus who go sixth overall. You get guys like Homer Bush, Tyler Wilson, Zach Thornton. You get guys that turn down some pretty big schools and world-renowned universities to say, you know what, I'm going to go be a Grand Canyon University Antelope because they got something special over there. And it was something cool to be a part of because when I was there, we had only been to the playoffs one time. We
Mhm.
had never made a regional. So being a part of that first team to do that, you kind of look back and you're like, you know what? I mean, I was a part of something special. And then to see where the university's at now, it's just awesome to look back.
Yeah. So you mentioned your brother, who you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe also plays there. So is it fair to assume that you are still you still keep pretty close tabs on the university through your brother, and monitor his performance fairly closely also?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I definitely so my first year in pro ball, my brother was there, and it was weird for me being away, looking back and
Mm,
watching all my friends and of course my brother playing there. But he recently just transferred to Virginia Tech to play baseball over there.
right on.
This will be the first time that I look back at Grand Canyon and I have no personal ties. I know a few of the guys and I played with a couple, but my brother's not there. My parents aren't in the stands, so it'll be fun to watch the university this year.
Good deal. Good deal. Okay, so let's talk about draft weekend. 2021's your draft year because fans get really excited about the draft. I also think it's kind of a mystery box, and we never really hear about what that experience is like from the perspective of a player. Did you have any inkling that it was going to be the Twins? Do you have any kind of indication about what range of the draft you were looking to go in, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, you have a bit of an idea of where you're going to go at in the draft. You talk to scouts, they talk to your agent. They say, "Hey, we think you're a middle day two guy, day three."
Hmm.
Just depends what kind of deal we can get. Because at the end of the day, it's a business, and they're looking to sign the best players for the least amount of money. And
Hmm.
no one dreams of that part, but that's a reality.
Right.
But no, I had no inclination that I was going to be Minnesota. And actually, the first time that I had talked to the Twin Scout was on draft day, which
Oh wow.
so it kind of came out of left field. But I mean, I was unbelievably fortunate enough because I've enjoyed my two spring trainings. This will be my third, so I've enjoyed the organization. We have great people. They care about their players. So I might have thought I wanted to go to a different organization, but I think the Lord pushed me in the right direction over here.
Right on. Right on. Well, we're glad you're here too, man. So you were taken in the 14th round, pick 429 by the Twins. When you kind of got that news, what, if anything, did you know about the organization, and what did you know about the state? Because you're a SoCal guy, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I knew nothing about the state except it gets cold in the winter, and the summers are beautiful. And then I actually had a longtime family friend who played for the Twins organization back in the day,
Mm,
Kim Landis, and he sent me a picture. I want to say it might have been in the 80s or 90s, but it was like a Twins bomber jacket, and
okay.
he said welcome to the family, and it was hilarious because he was someone that I looked up to, but I never remembered him for being a Minnesota Twin or in the organization. I just remembered him being a great family friend, and then it was kind of just a full circle moment of like this is someone I looked up to growing up, and now I'm part of his fraternity, which was super cool.
Right on. So, okay, so let's talk about you kind of coming out of college, right? So, I think one thing that's always really exciting for fans, right, is often during draft weekend, there'll be a decent amount of knowledge about some of the prospects that are taken in the early rounds, but it's this beautiful learning experience for folks where they get the opportunity to kind of get to know players and prospects who they don't know as much about, right? And so coming out of college, you were spoken about as a like pitchability guy, fastball in the high 80s, low 90s, like impeccable control. So I'm really curious because it seems like the Twins have really started to emerge as this organization that does a great job of developing pitching in recent seasons. What did the org lay out to you as you started your pro journey in terms of areas of focus for your development?
That's a great point because the Twins recently have picked up some really good arms and we've developed some really good guys, and it's been cool to see firsthand. But the Twins really emphasize pitch usage.
Hmm.
I know each individual pitcher has something that makes them special, it makes them unique. It gives them the ability to have success. And for me, that was my changeup. And I was always a pitcher who wanted to pitch off the fastball because I could locate it really well and sprinkle in my changeup when I felt it was necessary. But the Twins really poured into me that, hey, you need to throw your best pitch more often.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, when you put it that way, it makes perfect sense. Guys who have upper 90s fastball, throw that one more often. And guys that have a good slider, throw that more often. But for me, it was a changeup. So it was like 5 weeks into my professional career in the season. They're like, hey, we want you to throw it almost 50% of the time. And for all the geniuses out there, that's every other pitch. And that was something that I was so uncomfortable with at first because that's not pitching. That's just almost being like a robot. Like, okay,
Hmm.
every other one needs to be a changeup, but you don't always have to break it down that way. So it can be two in a row, and then you can take two off, or whatever. You can go three in a row and then take three off. So understanding that when in doubt, I needed to throw my best pitch more often, and that gets the least amount of damage, that gets the most swing and miss, it gets the most chase, like whatever it is, throw that more often. And being a professional is like, you know what? If that's what my bosses are telling me to do, I can buy into that. And
Hmm.
I ended up having a lot of success that first year in single A. And it was just more so like building off the fact that, hey, they have the numbers, they have the data, they know what is going to make you successful, they know what's going to make you not successful. So why not follow their plans and trust the process? And that's what we've done so far.
Love it. I love it. So I got to ask you about your kind of pitching arsenal a little bit more globally now, right? Because I kind of wanted to tee this up with a previous question because it sounds like you've been able to tap into quite a bit more velocity since you were drafted. So if you don't mind, and folks have asked this because I put it out there for folks to throw questions out there. People are wondering, what is your kind of pitching arsenal now? And tell us a little bit about the characteristics of those pitches.
So I am a fastball, changeup, slider, curveball guy. Primarily, I would say fastball, changeup, slider, and the
Hmm.
curveball is kind of a 10% usage pitch. So not it's not going to be sprinkled in a bunch, but it'll be helpful middle of the season, third time through the lineup, that kind of situation.
Hmm.
But the fastball characteristic is, yeah, it's slowly starting to climb in velo, which is phenomenal. We've taken some steps in the offseason that I think puts me in a good spot this year, but it's one that it's going to play well at the top of the zone. So in big league perspective, it's Joe Ryan, it's Pablo Lopez, it's top of the zone, swing and miss. And then the changeup it's a super depthy one,
Mm.
relatively speaking. It's not one that is going to have 30 inches of arm side run, but it's gonna miss the bat going north and south, and that just plays with my profile really well. And then the slider is more of a gyro slider, so it's not a Griffin Jacks sweeper, but
Hmm.
it does the job, and it's going to be firm. And then the curveball is just a big 12-6 breaking ball that takes their eyes in a completely different direction.
I love it. And I love those big league comps, man. So I gotta ask, is do you follow the major league team? I mean, last season was pretty exciting season for the Twins. I wonder how closely you follow while you're in the midst of your season. Obviously, that's probably a little tougher. And any kind of big league guys that you see as um an influence or folks that you're keen to emulate or admire in terms of how they go about their business from what you've been able to see.
Yeah, I think if anyone says they don't follow their own big league club, I think they're lying to you. You see the guys around the complex, and you're like, wow, I would love to have that kind of respect, that kind of moxie, whatever it is, around these clubhouse. So yeah, you pay attention to who the guys are, how they carry themselves, and then oh, by the way, when the TV's on, you tell everyone, hey, I know this guy, like, and you might have had one conversation with them. But yeah, when we all pay attention, when we're in our pitching meetings, it's like, hey, Griffin Jacks has one of the most elite sliders in the game, or Durant has
Mhm.
the most elite fastball in the game, or whatever it is. So we're always learning from what their data says, what our data says, and I mean, at the end of the day, we're all trying to be big leaguers, and these coaches are trying to put the best guys out on the field. So if we can learn from the best in the world that are already in our organization, I just think it gives us an advantage when you're not insecure about being vulnerable and understanding that, hey, my pitch is not big league ready yet. How can we get it there?
Love it. Love it. Okay, so another question that came up multiple times. So like it struck me while I was reading this and while I was getting ready for this might be difficult to answer because maybe it's just something that's always come naturally to you. But people are really fascinated by the control and the command that you have as a pitcher. Has that always been a skill set you've had access to? Where does the impeccable control of your stuff come from?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's definitely been something that has been a characteristic for me for a long time.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, there's some days where it's better and there's some days where it's worse, but I think it's the constant approach of I'm going to attack the zone, whether there's a bat in there or not. And sometimes you get hit and sometimes you don't. But the odds say that hitting is so hard that you're going to be successful more times than not. And it's funny, we have that conversation around this complex where this time of year guys are working on their command or guys are working on their velo. So we're bouncing ideas off each other. And it's like, hey, well, you throw a lot of strikes. What do you do? And I'm
Mhm.
like, and then I'm doing this like, hey guys, you throw really hard. What kind of work are you guys doing? What are you focusing on in the weight room? What are you feeling in your delivery? So it's a constant battle of like, hey, you do this really well, I do that really well. Let's bounce ideas off each other. But I mean, there's some things that are just God given, and I mean, there's a reason why some of the best players in the world aren't coaches or aren't good coaches is because it's so God given that it's hard to teach something that you're blessed with.
Mhm.
But those guys that have had to work for something and had to break it down to just the most minuscule level are usually the ones that can teach it back. So I would say the control thing is God given for sure, but it's something that I think you can teach if you are willing to learn.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about 2023, right? So you started the season at High A, Cedar Rapids. We had Jonas Lovin on about 4 or 6 weeks ago. He was an awesome guest too. You had a good start there. You had a tough month of June, and I want to ask you about that because this was right before you moved up to Double A Wichita. Um, when you go through a difficult spell as a pitcher, how do you react to that? How do you stay grounded and focused, especially if the org has you working on something that might sometimes be at odds with results or outcomes that you want to see like as a pitcher or as a competitor? How do you work through adversity?
That's a great question because there are times where it's like, hey, we want you to work on this pitch, and we don't care if you're successful.
Right.
But that's the front office speaking. They're not the ones out there with the cleats on, with the jersey on, watching the guys go round and around the bases. So I mean, it's a little more taxing than just going, oh, well, they said it doesn't matter, so I'm just going to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, it's not how male competitors work.
Mhm.
I wish it was, but I mean, yeah, there was a time this year or the beginning of 2023, I should say, where there was some self doubt where it was like, you know what? They said in spring training this pitch would make me successful. We worked on it, and now it's not being successful. So what's going on? And it's funny, Jonas was a huge pillar for me this year because we would stay up after a start if I wasn't successful, and we would be texting back and forth till 1, 2 a.m., going like, well, the numbers say we should have success. We're not getting any swing and miss. What's going on? And he would bounce ideas off the front office guys, and he would get them back to me the next day, and it was a constant battle. But it's a process, and it's a long year, and we were 5 weeks into the season, so it was like, you know what, let's not hit the panic button, let's continue to work hard.
Mhm.
The chips are going to fall where they may, but we can control our approach to the game, we can control our catch play, we can control our bullpens, and when you get out there, just go compete your butt off and hope for the best. And I think that was something that I had to just grit my teeth and get through because the shapes were good, the velocities were better than the year prior, but we weren't having success right away. And it was, I mean, it's just a constant battle.
Yeah. So let's talk about that transition to Wichita because this is another thing folks are really interested in, and juxtaposing like a tough month of the season with a prolonged period of like great success for you, man. So rest of 2023, after you moved up to Double A, you pitched 87 innings, 269 ERA, struck out 74, walked just 13. There's this like refrain that like moving from high A to Double A can be a difficult transition for folks. You made it look pretty easy. I'm sure it wasn't. But like, to what do you kind of attribute that success and that great kind of second half you had when you moved up?
And it's funny you bring that up because I mean that's the talk of the water cooler right now is how did Pearson go from high A to double A and make it look easier? Because everyone in professional baseball understands that if you can play in double A,
Hmm.
typically you're gonna have a chance to play in the big leagues because
Right.
double A is full of top prospects, guys with big league time, whatever it may be. Everyone says that's the biggest jump. So having success in double A was like, well, how come I wasn't absolutely dominating the lower levels then? And literally just 2 weeks ago when I got down to Florida, I'm talking to some of the guys that I had in high A and then in double A as well. And they were like, "Hey Pearson, why did you think you were more successful in double A?" I gave them my answer. Like, well, do you mind hearing what I have to say? I said, yeah, let's hear it. And we like because it was Jalen Allen. He got promoted to double A and he has some great pitches, but they're not always in the strike zone. And
Hmm.
in double A, guys take so many pitches. They're looking for their one spot, and if it's not there, they're going to take, or if it's a breaking ball, they're going to take. And he was saying that Pearson, you throw so many strikes that when all these high level guys take and they don't like what it is, it's a strike. And when the count goes to 0-1, 0-2, 1-2, the game just says you're going to get out. No
Hmm.
matter how hard you hit it, you're going to hit it right at somebody. And hitting is just too hard to do when it's 0-2, 1-2. And if you look at some of my numbers, getting to 0-2, 1-2 is something that I do better than 90% of minor league pitchers.
Hmm.
So I think that's that's a huge testament to dominating higher levels is throwing strikes because they don't swing all that often.
Yep. Yep. That resonates, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Um,
awesome. So I gotta zoom out and ask you a little bit about the organization because we touched on this a little bit, but if we look back through the past, like we'll call it through like the current front offices, um, kind of leadership, the Twins have started to develop this reputation for developing guys that are drafted in the mid to late rounds into major league contributors, right? So like Bailey Ober was drafted in the 12th round, Louis Varland drafted in the 15th, David Festa, 13th round, kind of knocking on the doorstep at AAA. Is that something that kind of spurs you on as you look to make your kind of next leap for yourself in 2024?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely encouraging because obviously you see the top picks in baseball, they're on every prospect list possible. But if you look at the Twins roster, there's a lot of 10th plus rounders in the starting lineup or in the
Hmm.
bullpen or even in the rotation for that means. So yeah, it does give you a bit of confidence knowing like, you know what? They value guys like me. If you have success, they're gonna treat you as one of their guys and that's really encouraging, especially playing in the minor leagues, you're all over the middle of the country or wherever you're at. And it's like, you know what? Does anyone actually care about me or am I just doing this for the enjoyment of the game and for the love of the game? But no, it's like the Twins value you enough that if you're going to have success and you're going to help them win at the big league level, they're going to put you in the jersey. So, no, it's definitely something that we pay attention to.
Awesome. Well, I got to ask you about looking ahead a little bit to 2024 now. So you closed 23 on this great run with Wichita. Um, do you know where you're starting 2024? Feel free to not answer that if you don't want to. And then also, like, what are some of your goals for this coming season, either kind of developmentally for yourself or some of the outcomes that you want for yourself heading into the season?
I wish I could tell you where I was starting. I know there's some talk at the water cooler of this, that, and the other, but it's all gray area. And I mean,
Okay.
as you know, there's spring training signs and whatnot. So I think I just have to control what I can control and
Hmm.
we'll be where we need to be. But in 2024, I got some big aspirations. It's all going to depend on, I guess, how hard I'm willing to work and if the chips fall in my corner. But I see myself progressing. I don't see myself plateauing anytime soon. Where that takes me this year, who's gonna know? But I know we're getting closer and closer, so I think it's within reach. But I mean, I'm gonna continue to handle the things that I can do and put myself in the best spot possible.
Love it. Okay, I gotta finish by asking you about some teammates because this wasn't necessarily part of my plan, but you brought up a number of other guys, and I'm always interested to ask players about other guys that they play with. So, are there other pitchers that you played with last season in 2023 that particularly impressed you, whether that was a specific pitch, whether that was amazing velo that you saw, that you think Twins fans should be aware of heading into the 2024 season? Anyone spring to mind as someone that you saw and you're like, whoa?
I mean, I think we all would agree that David Festa is a phenomenal pitcher, but I think what fans don't see is the fact that he is unbelievably disciplined in his preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Him and I had this conversation in Double A where it's like on start day, once you see us on the field in jersey and uniform and we're throwing, that's the easiest part of our day. Everyone thinks, oh, now they're going to get their work in. No, I mean, David, I see him do his routine. He's working for 2.5 hours, getting his body loose, putting himself in a good spot. And it was something that I admired because he was so disciplined in the fact that, you know what, he's going to do step-by-step process to get himself ready and put himself in the best spot before every start. So that was something that was super cool to watch from that perspective as a teammate, because previously I'd only been teammates with David for I think 4 or 5 weeks in low A. So gosh, that was seems like forever ago. But there was a lot of older guys in our um, organization in Wichita that kind of have been around the block. They've been through different organizations, and they pour into us younger guys saying, "Hey, fellas, you guys are in a phenomenal spot. The Twins take care of you. The Twins actually understand pitching, and they preach it. They're not keeping any secrets from you. So take it all in as much as you can and work your butt off, because this is an organization that I want to be a part of." And this is coming from guys that have played for the Dodgers, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Seattle Mariners, like the Houston Astros, some phenomenal organizations who are known for developing pitchers, and still the Twins are receiving high praise. So it kind of lets us know, hey, we're in one of the most envied spots of minor league baseball players. Let's let's work our butt off and use all the resources that we have available to put ourselves in the best spot possible. So, no, I mean, there's a lot of teammates. I mean, I could go on and on, but I think Festa's discipline is something that doesn't get praised. Although, I mean, he gets praised for the fastball, and I think that's very well deserving. But there's a lot that goes into that. So,
Mm-hmm. Great example. I love it. Thanks for sharing.
absolutely.
Well, Pearson, I don't want to take up any more of your time because I know you have a busy schedule. Shout out to everyone who sent questions in for this episode. If you want to support the show, download and retweet the episodes. You can follow us on Twitter at DTS_1 and subscribe on YouTube at Destination The Show. Pierson Ohl, we will be following closely in 2024. Wishing you good luck. Hope you have a great season. And thanks so much for your time, man.
JD, thank you so much for having me.